First, though, President Trump officially announcing a new pick to fill Adriana Kugler's spot on the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. Steve Leisman's here, and he has that story for us. Steve.
Hey, good morning, David. Yeah, the CEA chair, Stephen Miran, has been a stalwart defender of the president's economic policies and an architect of those key policies. But the appointment by the president to the Fed to be a Fed governor sounds initially temporary. The president writing in a tweet, "It is my great honor to announce that I have chosen Dr. Stephen Miran, current chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors, to serve in the just vacated seat on the Federal Reserve Board until January 31st, 2026. In the meantime, we will continue to search for a permanent replacement." Evercore ISI writing, "Given his support of Trump's policies, we think Miran would likely continue to act as a Trump loyalist once on the Fed board, calling for lower rates and voting for rate cuts in FOMC meetings." More on that in a second. Miran, though, has become known as a principal author of the controversial Mar-a-Lago Accords. What do they call for? Weakening the U.S. dollar, boosting U.S. manufacturing, reducing the trade deficit, and using tariffs. Sound familiar? Miran is an economist with a Ph.D. from Harvard, has also called for reform at the Fed, including 8-year terms instead of 14, and governors serving at the pleasure of the president. Well, Miran's appointment would make 4 of 7 governors Trump appointees, including Waller, Bowman, and you may want to, I don't know if you want to count Fed Chair Jay Powell, would be the 4th. How much of a difference all this makes? Well, that's the big question. Unclear to me. It would be difficult for the Senate to approve him before the September 17th meeting, where markets already expect a cut, and Fed futures are showing pretty much toying with the idea of 3 cuts this year. So may not make much of a change this year. Question is whether or not next year into 2026, depending on if Miran is there, if it does make a big deal. Guys?
Steve, that Fed reform that he's talking about, how would that even work? How likely is that as a possibility?
Sorry, you asked about the accord?
The reforming of the Fed, the making it perhaps less independent.
The reform. It would all pretty much have to go through Congress. Somewhat complicated by a strange Supreme Court, not quite ruling, but comment when the president went to go fire one of the heads of the NLRB. The Supreme Court kind of went out of its way to say the Fed is different here. So a bunch of that would have to go through Congress. Not a lot of that is really radical, but some of the ideas are potentially radical from the Mar-a-Lago Accords, more so like taxing foreign ownership of U.S. bonds. He also, by the way, on the Fed reform thing, wants the Fed budget to go through or approved by Congress. So some of that's a little more controversial. Last year, he was calling for tighter monetary policy, but most observers don't think he would do that now. And I guess that's the question, right, is whether or not you have somebody who goes in there who's more loyal to the administration at the expense of the Fed's ultimate goal or its mandate of low inflation and low unemployment. So all of that becomes a question how he would vote. And ultimately, I guess the results would tell us if it's the right thing to do or not.
Right. That does appear to be the question. Steve Leisman, thank you very much. Right. Let's continue the conversation.
Leslie, I want to make one more point. Leslie, sorry. When I said the 4, there's 7 board of governors, and there are 5 presidents. So there's 12 votes in total. So just to be clear that even if the president had a majority on the board, there are still the presidents, the district presidents, who could potentially offset that. I'll leave it there.
Right. And this just overall historic idea of having some unity there and kind of what this shift entails. Thank you, Steve Leisman.
Right.